The storm raged violently across the night sky. Thunder cracked like the roar of an angry beast, and flashes of lightning illuminated the dense forest. Hidden deep within this wilderness stood a crumbling, abandoned mansion, a place the villagers called the House of Dead. For decades, stories had spread about this sinister house. Some claimed it was cursed, others swore that spirits of the restless dead haunted its halls. What was certain was that no one who dared step inside ever stayed the same. Some returned broken and trembling, and some never returned at all. The story begins with four friends, Sarah, Danish, Fahad, and Zara. They were university students, young and reckless, with a taste for thrill-seeking adventures. Rumors of the haunted mansion had reached their ears, and Sarah, always the skeptic, was determined to prove that it was nothing more than superstitious nonsense. "Ghosts don't exist," she declared confidently as they sat together in the evening. "This whole House of Dead story is just to scare people. We should go there tonight and prove everyone wrong." Fahad, the most timid of the group, immediately protested. "Are you all insane? That place is dangerous. People vanish there. I don't care if it's ghosts or not. There's something in that house we shouldn't mess with." But Sarah's determination was contagious. Zara joined her with a mischievous grin, and even Danish, who was usually cautious, couldn't resist the challenge. With all three pushing him, Fahad reluctantly agreed, though his heart already pounded with dread. By midnight they were on their way. The forest path was narrow and damp, the branches above twisting like skeletal arms. A cold wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it faint sounds, like distant whispers. Fahad kept glancing over his shoulder, convinced that unseen eyes were following them. Finally, they reached the gates. Rusted iron, covered with vines, loomed in front of them. Sarah pushed the gate with both hands, and it opened with a long, piercing creak that echoed into the night. Inside was a courtyard, overgrown with wild bushes and scattered with crumbling gravestones. In the center stood an old well. The villagers said they often heard a woman's screams echoing from its depths. "Creepy," Zara muttered, clutching her jacket tighter. "Just stories," Sarah said sharply. "Come on, let's go inside." The mansion's entrance was massive, its wooden doors splintered and scarred with age. As they stepped in, a suffocating darkness engulfed them. Danish flicked on his flashlight, and the beam revealed decayed walls, peeling wallpaper, and cobwebs dangling like curtains. Then they noticed it. On one of the doors was the imprint of bloody handprints, smeared as if someone had been dragged inside. Fahad froze, his voice trembling. "We shouldn't be here. I'm telling you, something bad happened in this house." But Zara smirked, trying to mask her own fear. "Don't be such a coward. We're just getting started." They stepped into a large hall. The moment they crossed the threshold, the heavy wooden door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang. All four of them spun around in shock. Danish shone his flashlight across the room, and that was when they saw it. An old, cracked mirror hanging on the wall. At first it seemed ordinary, but then the reflections began to change. In the mirror, their faces stared back at them, except their reflections were smiling. Wide, unnatural smiles stretched across their faces, even though none of them were smiling in reality. The grins grew wider, grotesque, and horrifying. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stepped closer, but just as suddenly, the reflections vanished. The mirror showed nothing at all, not even their true images. "It's just an illusion," Sarah said, though her voice shook. Then came the sound, the unmistakable thud of heavy footsteps from upstairs. The wooden floorboards groaned as if something massive walked above them. The friends stared at each other in silence, fear tightening its grip. "Someone's here," Zara whispered. Danish clenched the flashlight. Then we're going to find out who. We came for the truth, didn't we? They climbed the staircase, each step creaking under their weight. The air grew colder, heavy with a rotten stench, like decaying flesh. At the top was a long hallway lined with doors. From beneath each door, icy drafts escaped, and the faint sound of whispers floated in the air. Suddenly, one of the doors creaked open on its own. Inside, the room was pitch black. For a brief second, the flashlight caught the image of a figure, someone sitting motionless on a chair. But as soon as the light steadied, the chair was empty. Zara gasped, clutching Sarah's arm. We need to leave. Now, before anyone could respond, every door in the hallway slammed shut with a violent force. The echoes shook the walls. From the shadows came laughter, deep, distorted, and inhuman. The sound filled the corridor, surrounding them from all sides. In that moment, all four realized the stories were true. They weren't alone. The house was alive, and it wanted them. This was not just an abandoned mansion. This was the House of Dead. The laughter echoed through the hallway, twisting and distorting as if 100 voices were mocking them all at once. Zara clutched Sarah's hand so tightly, her nails dug into the skin. Danish's flashlight flickered, threatening to plunge them into total darkness. Fahad was shaking, whispering under his breath, "We have to get out. We have to get out before it's too late." But Sarah, still clinging to her stubborn disbelief, tried to stay calm. It's just sound tricks. Maybe there's speakers in here, or..." Her words died in her throat as the laughter abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the darkness itself. Then a door at the very end of the hallway creaked open by itself, swinging slowly, as if inviting them inside. A faint red glow spilled from the crack. "Nope," Fahad muttered, backing away. "We're not going in there." Danish gritted his teeth. "If we turn back now, we'll never know the truth. We need to see what's inside." Against every instinct screaming at them to run, the group inched toward the glowing door. As they stepped into the room, the door slammed behind them, locking with an echoing clank. The red light came from dozens of candles, arranged in a circle around the room. At the center was a decayed wooden table, and on it lay an ancient book, its cover bound in cracked leather and marked with strange symbols. Zara's voice shook. What is this place?" Danish stepped closer, shining the flashlight over the book. The symbols glistened faintly, as though alive. He reached out, hesitated, then touched it. The moment his fingers grazed the surface, the candles flared violently, their flames stretching upward like claws. The book sprang open on its own, pages fluttering as though caught in a wind none of them could feel. Then, the whispers began. Low, hissing voices filled the room, speaking in a language none of them understood. The air grew suffocatingly hot. Zara covered her ears, trembling. Sarah, wide-eyed, whispered, It's like the house is speaking to us." Suddenly, a scream tore through the air, loud, shrill, and agonized. But it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the book. The pages warped and bled, dark stains spreading like veins. A grotesque face began forming on the parchment, eyes bulging, mouth wide open as if eternally screaming. Fahad staggered back, nearly tripping over a candle. "This is wrong. We have to leave, now!" But before they could move, the floor beneath them trembled. Cracks split across the wooden boards, and cold air hissed upward. From the shadows between the floorboards, skeletal hands began clawing their way out. The friends screamed as one of the hands gripped Zara's ankle. She kicked and thrashed wildly, but the grip was unnaturally strong. Danish lunged forward, pulling her free, but not before another bony hand slashed across his leg, leaving a burning cut. The candles extinguished instantly, plunging the room into pitch black. Danish frantically flicked his flashlight back on, but the moment the beam cut through the dark, the room was empty. The book was gone. The table was gone. Even the cracks in the floor had disappeared. It was as if the nightmare they had just witnessed had been erased, except for one detail. Danish's leg still bled, the wound fresh and stinging. What just happened? Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. Zara shook her head, her face pale. We're trapped. This house, it's not just haunted, it's alive, it's playing with us. A distant sound interrupted her, footsteps again, but heavier now, deliberate, moving down the hallway toward them. The sound of something massive, dragging chains across the floor. They pressed against the door, trying to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they were right outside. Then silence. A slow knock tapped against the door. Once, twice, 3 times. Sarah whispered, "Who's there?" The door burst open with a violent force, slamming into the wall. The hallway outside was dark, but in the shadows loomed a figure. Its outline was human, but unnaturally tall, its head bent as though its neck was too long for its body. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the flashlight's beam like those of a predator. Fahad screamed, grabbing Zara's arm. "Run!" They bolted past the figure, who moved with jerky, unnatural motions. Its head twisted at an impossible angle as it watched them flee. They raced down the hallway, the floorboards groaning, the air colder than ice. The storm outside howled like a chorus of tortured souls, lightning slicing through the sky, casting jagged shadows across the cursed mansion. Inside, the 4 friends stood paralyzed in the entry hall, surrounded by shadowy figures emerging from every doorway. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, their movements twitchy and unnatural, as though marionettes controlled by invisible strings. Sarah's breathing grew shallow. We're trapped. The shadows began to chant, their voices overlapping in a grotesque symphony. Stay, stay, forever. The air thickened, pressing against their lungs, making every breath a struggle. Danish tightened his grip on the flashlight. We can't fight them. We need to find another way out, something the house doesn't want us to see. But before anyone could respond, the shadows lunged. The group scattered in panic. Zara and Sarah ran toward the main door, while Danish pulled a trembling Fahad toward the back corridor. Sarah slammed her hands against the heavy front doors, but they wouldn't move. The wood felt alive beneath her palms, throbbing like a heartbeat. "It's sealing us in!" she screamed. Behind her, Zara turned, eyes widening as one of the shadows crawled along the ceiling, its twisted arms reaching down. She yanked Sarah back just in time as the creature crashed onto the floor where she had been standing. Its face was nothing but torn flesh and teeth, its jaw hanging loose. Meanwhile, Danish and Fahad stumbled into the kitchen. The stench of rot was unbearable. Rusted pans hung from the ceiling, and the counters were littered with broken glass and dark stains that looked too much like dried blood. In the corner stood a door leading to the basement. "No," Fahad said instantly, shaking his head. "Not down there. Please, not the basement." But the sound of the creatures closing in left no choice. Danish shoved the door open, dragging Fahad down the creaking steps. The basement smelled of mold and something worse, something ancient. At the bottom, Danish swept the flashlight across the room. The beam caught on a mural painted across the stone wall. It depicted the mansion itself, surrounded by flames, with dozens of skeletal figures bowing before a monstrous shape above the house. The creature's body was hidden in shadows, but its glowing red eyes were unmistakable. Beneath the mural, scratched into the stone in jagged letters, were the words, "The house is the master." The house must feed. Fahad collapsed to his knees. We're never getting out, are we? Upstairs, Sarah and Zara fought their own nightmare. They darted into what looked like a study, slamming the door shut behind them. Candles lit themselves instantly, casting flickering light across shelves of dusty books and broken furniture. In the center of the room stood the same cursed book they had seen earlier, resting atop a pedestal. Zara's voice shook. It's back. Why is it here again? Sarah, her skepticism finally shattered, whispered, because it wants us to open it. The book shivered, its pages rustling though no wind touched it. A deep, guttural voice echoed from within. Blood. Open with blood. Sarah stepped back. No, we can't. That's what it wants. But the door behind them rattled violently as the shadows began to break through. Zara grabbed a shard of glass from the floor, her hand trembling. If this is the only way to stop it, maybe we have to. She slashed her palm, letting drops of blood drip onto the book. Instantly the candles blazed higher, and the book opened. Pages flipped rapidly until they stopped on one filled with moving ink. The words writhed across the parchment like living things. A blinding red light shot out, blasting the door open. The shadows recoiled, screeching as the energy burned them away. Down in the basement, Danish and Fahad felt the house tremble. Cracks split through the walls, dust raining from the ceiling. Danish looked around wildly. Something's happening upstairs. But their relief was short-lived. The mural on the wall began to glow. The monstrous figure's red eyes burned brighter, and with a thunderous crack, the wall itself split open. Out from the darkness beyond, a massive skeletal hand clawed into the basement, dragging with it a hulking shape too large to fully see. Fahad screamed, "It's real!" Oh God, it's real! Upstairs, Sarah and Zara tried to keep the book steady as its power raged. Sarah shouted, "There's got to be a spell, a ritual, something to end this." She frantically flipped through the pages until her eyes caught a phrase scrawled in crimson. Return what was taken. Sacrifice what is living. Her heart sank. She understood. The house demanded life to keep its hunger satisfied. Every soul it had claimed had been the sacrifice. Zara, pale and shaking, whispered, "It wants one of us." The floor shook violently. The basement door exploded open as Danish and Fahad stumbled in, pursued by the monstrous figure emerging from the depths. The friends regrouped, the book glowing between them, the house screaming with fury. Sarah's tears streamed down her face. If we don't give it what it wants, none of us will survive. The creature roared, shaking the walls. Shadows swarmed again, their whispers rising, "Feed the master! Feed the house!" And in that final moment, the friends realized the truth. One of them would have to be left behind, a sacrifice to the house of dead, or none would ever escape its grasp. The storm outside reached its climax, thunder booming as the house waited to claim its due.